loud, so it is now turned on. So I'm just going to jump right in. Other people may join us, but whenever you choose a time that isn't going to work for everyone, people are going to come in and they're going to go out, and that's all just good. So hi, thank you all for joining our little session today. What I want to do, what I promised to do, and what I hope to do is to share with you some things that I have learned in how to grow your Facebook audience. And the primary motivation for me when I started down this path of trying to figure out how to grow my Facebook audience was because I feel like I have this whole universe of people out there that I just don't know, right? And so if I can make myself more visible to them, that universe of people who might like and trust me and then someday do business with me, then I have a better opportunity to just spread my my touch. And doing that will require me to master some skills that I currently haven't been using and don't know about. So I hired this guy named Nathan Zadworthy, I believe his name is, and I'd be happy to share his contact information with anyone. He was actually referred to me by Pam Driscoll, so you all know Pam, and she's been coaching with him for a bit. And as a result, she has really done some pretty amazing things in terms of some of the conferences she held over when the COVID was really starting, et cetera. And she got good results from her efforts. And so when she shared Nathan with me, I thought, well, that's an excellent opportunity to learn more. And welcome, Patty.
Thank you.
So when we're getting ready to do our book launch, and as we are thinking about how do we want to be able to get to bestseller status on as many lists as possible, there are several ways that we'll be able to do that. And one of the tools that we'll want to leverage is social media. And of course, there's all kinds of social media. There's Facebook and there's Instagram and there's LinkedIn. The session that we're going to do today is really focused completely on Facebook and how to leverage it. And then there will be additional things that we can learn on Instagram, etc. So I've just recently signed up for a class on Instagram as well. So as I learn more, I'll share with you, because currently I can barely spell Instagram, let alone know how to go about finding anything in it. So we're still admitting people, so I'm just going to keep giving you a little intro while people join. So welcome, Grace. Grace, I think of you as very accomplished in Instagram, so perhaps I can throw you under the bus and we can collaborate offline and talk about more of how we can share your understanding of Instagram.
Sure.
On another session. So, oh, you look lovely, by the way.
Thank you.
And Ryan, welcome. And Samantha, welcome. We don't see her yet, but she's signed in, so she'll be joining us shortly. Okay, so the key to, according to Nathan, the key to growing your following on LinkedIn is, or not LinkedIn, on Facebook, is number one, by understanding who you are in terms of what you want your market to be and who you want to attract. So in my case, and I'll use my case as an example, and you guys will each have a different answer. And if anyone wants to have any opportunity to brainstorm and to think about your market, etc., offline, I'd be happy to do that with you. But for the purposes of describing this process to you today, I'll use my focus, which is overcoming burnout and overwhelm. So I'm going to share my screen. And the first thing I'm going to look at is my Facebook application. If I can get this thing out of my way. Here we go. So, no, first let's go to this PowerPoint. So I'm going to go up here and move to the slideshow view. Can you guys see my slideshow? Okay, cool. So what Nathan tells you to do is first go, and once you understand who you want your market to be and your avatar, and an avatar, by the way, is sort of who it is your typical person is that you want to help. In my case, I want to help people who are having trouble having a passionate, fulfilling life because they're overwhelmed or they're suffering from burnout. And there's a whole range of adjectives that we could use in that framework. But one of the things that Nathan suggested to start with, and I'll stop referring to him and I'll just own it, is the whole notion of going to Amazon, for example, to look for experts in your field. So I went to Amazon, and this is just Amazon.com, and put in the search term overwhelm. And when I do that, then I get all of these various authors that show up. And then it's just a process of investigation, really. So I look at the various authors, and then I go and search for those authors on Facebook. And then when I find them on Facebook, then I look to see who has a group that might be of interest. And the whole end game here is to get into groups that are of like-minded people, that are like your avatar, that are like the people who are going to be looking for the kinds of things that you want to be able to offer, and then start engaging with them. So the first thing I did was go here, and I found Dr. Samantha Brody. And then, so, okay, I go over to Facebook, and I go to the next slide, if it'll play, and I put in Samantha Brody. And so the first thing you have to do when you do this is obviously figure out if you can find Samantha Brody, because there are oftentimes many people of the same name, and not everyone who has written a book is going to find themselves on Facebook. There are a lot of people in my network, for example, in my human network, that don't do anything on Facebook. Maybe they're only in LinkedIn. So I have found, given what I've been doing the last couple of months doing since I had my session to learn about this stuff, is that I'll go first to Facebook, because that's really what I'm trying to do, is to build a Facebook following. And if I don't find them in Facebook, I go to LinkedIn, and 9 times out of 10, I'll find them on LinkedIn. But because LinkedIn doesn't have the same kind of group structure that you see in Facebook, my strategy in LinkedIn is going to be a little different. So in LinkedIn, just a brief aside, will be that I will connect with them on LinkedIn. And if they accept my connection, then I'll send them an instant message and ask them if we could connect for 10 or 15 minutes by phone and learn about each other, so that I can get more connected with them just on a networking level. But that's an aside, because it's not going to help me grow my Facebook following. So in Facebook, you just put in right up here in the upper left-hand corner, whoever you're looking for, and you find it here. Now this one turned out to be Dr. Samantha Brody, and she had written that book we saw. So I was able to find her. So when I went to her page, what I discovered was, here she is, Dr. Samantha Brody. There's not a lot here in terms of, she's not really active on Facebook. She doesn't do a lot here. But I found here in her intro section, she had a link that says, visit me here. So I went there, and I found that she actually has a page. So I didn't capture that page here. And a Facebook page is different than a Facebook group. And you may know that a Facebook page will allow you to have other kinds of interactions. Like I have a page for On Fire Outcomes, but what I have found, and you may find your work process different, what I have found is having a business account for my organization, which is a page, because you have to have your personal account in order to have any other pages. But to have that business account and my personal account, plus these groups, it ends up becoming pretty overwhelming. And now I'm having to every day think of multiple ways to post information on all these different pages. And the reality is, people are going to probably, if they're ever going to look for me, they're probably going to look for me by my name anyway. So my personal page is the way I am organizing my Facebook messaging. And then I will invite people to my private group. So what that's about is, so what we're trying to do is we're going to find these various groups that are going to have people that have a like mind, a like interest, and then you're going to start participating in those groups with the ultimate goal of adding your own group. So with that in mind, you can see on the slide I'm showing you right now that the very top group here is my new group that I started about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. And it's called On Fire Living, Prevention and Recovery from Overwhelm and Burnout. And the whole point in this, so if you get the process, and then we'll go back and cover some of the specific steps, the whole process is find your audience wherever they are in these other Facebook groups, go and start interacting with them. And as you become aware of specific people, they will friend you or you can friend them. And then you invite them to your own group. So basically you're creating a following and then you're asking them to come with you. And when you are effective at being able to have people who know your work, like what you're about, are aligned with you, they're then going to be more likely to follow you anywhere, which might include offering a coaching package or offering a mastermind group or buying the next book that you publish, whatever it is. It's like all of us are Canfield fans, right? So while Canfield has so many emails coming out now that we're not buying necessarily everything. I'm not reading every single email that comes across, but Canfield is going to place a higher, take a higher priority for me than some other people that I'm not so closely aligned to. Like I get some stuff from Tony Robbins, but I just don't resonate as well with Tony Robbins. So I'm not a Tony Robbins follower. Other people are very much Tony Robbins followers, and they're going to do all of his stuff and go to all of his events, but that's just not for me. So over time, I want to be developing my own following so that when people see On Fire, fill in the blank, On Fire Living, On Fire Mastermind Groups, On Fire whatever by Cindy Hawkart, they're going to go, oh, I know what that's about. So let's go check out, see what she's up to now. Making sense to everyone so far? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm seeing nods. So I am going to stop this and I'm going over to Facebook directly. So now I'm just in Facebook Live, and this is the same screen that you saw. Because one of the things I found in following Nathan's advice is I would go to Amazon.com and I would find a group, or no, I would find an author, and it took, 15 or 20 different kinds of authors and different keywords to find the people that I was looking for that are sort of in my niche. And then I would come over here and I would find them just like I showed you by looking for their profile. And then I would go look to see what groups they might be in, what groups they might be associated with. But I was finding that that was leading me down a blind alley a lot of times and wasn't really getting me to my end goal. So then I discovered if I just go into the groups, which here in Facebook, if you're not familiar with it, the groups is this little icon right here at the second to the right. And I just can type in my keyword here in groups. And if it's overwhelmed, then so be it. And then filter by groups. And you're going to get all the groups that have overwhelm in the title. And now it's a game of going to look at what those groups are and are they going to be potentially good fits for what you're trying to do. And there's a couple of things to look at. For example, this one, which is of course the best group, and if you don't belong to it, you should. It's mine that just got started recently and has 73 members. So if I was coming here and looking for this, I would say 73 members. I don't know. Started in May of 2020. So I know it's relatively new. And then I'd probably go into the group and see how frequently people are posting to it. So those are sort of the criteria you're going to want to look at. How big is the group? How active is the group? And how recent, if you will, they are. And then you just have to just go check it out. So for example, in this group, this one looks like it might have potential because it has 1.6 thousand members, the Overwhelmed Brain Empowerment Group. So if I go look at that group, then I can read a little bit about it and see, you know, if there's any reason why I wouldn't want to be in this group. And most groups that are private groups, you have to request to join the group and then wait to allow to be entered. Some groups, well, which that's a really nice picture up there. Some groups will require you to say something about who you are and why you want to be in that group before they allow you to enter. This particular one just wanted to make sure that I was over 18 years old. Some require a much more extensive questionnaire. So as you think about that for setting up your own group, know that you can set up a variety of different criteria that will help you to figure out if that's something you want to do. This one looked like it might have some potential because it's the Overwhelmed Nurse. So given who I want to work with, sounds like it has some real potential. But when I look at it, it's only 335 members, so it's pretty small. But I went ahead and joined it because I want to just investigate what kinds of things they're talking about and you know, if it would be valuable for me to join the group. I submitted the request to join the group some while ago, like when I was doing this original posting, and they still haven't responded. So that tells me that they're just not very active, right? So I'm not going to take that personally. They just haven't gotten around to looking at it. Oasis in the Overwhelm has only 35 members and so forth. So you can put in all kinds of different search words, look for a group that's active, and then do that. Now I found a group, let me go to my groups here. I found several groups that I have joined, and there are some groups, and I'll share this again as an aside. This Vegas study group turned out to be a really interesting group for informational purposes, but it's not really a group that I'm probably going to, it's very sciencey. It's not really a group that's probably going to net me potential clients necessarily. So I'm a member of this group and I watch it because there are some interesting things that allow me to expand my knowledge, but it's probably not somewhere I'm going to be spending a lot of time trying to attract people out of, because it's much more sciencey than what I typically am going to want to do. I found this group, Women Helping Women Entrepreneurs, and with everyone except Stuart, this might actually be a group that you'd be interested in because it's not specific to my particular topic, but it's a really active group. There's 391,000 members in this group, and it is very, very busy, and it's very common to have people posting in here, you know, I want to do this. What can you do to help me with it? And so they're actively seeking advice. So it's a good group where you can go in and start talking about the kinds of things that you would bring to the table to help and just give people advice. So it serves two purposes. One is you're able to start developing your voice, if you will, because we've had all this training, we've had all of these years of experience, But until you start applying it to people, you don't have the same level of integration in your awareness, right? So as you start looking at people's issues and what they're asking for and how you position it, you can really learn a lot about how you want to be pitching yourself to your own market as you start taking it out into the world. And then, you know, my typical posts are not going to be quite like this. Like the one I'm showing you here is, this is fabulous. I'm gonna, you know, there's just, that's great. It's great to be a part of community, but it's not gonna add as much value as looking for someone who says, I'm having this kind of problem. What kind of ideas do you have? And then be able to pitch in on at that level. And very recently, I don't remember which group I was in, because now you can see I have several going on over here on the left-hand side. But someone in some group I had posted and had invited, and what will happen often is when you post to these groups, then those people who like what you say or like what you respond to will come and go look for you in Facebook, just like you saw me doing with Dr. Brody, and then we'll become friends. So I have been adding, when I'm actively posting, and there have been times I've gotten lazy, I've been adding 5 to 10 new members in my Facebook following every day. So it is working. And in doing that, I was able to attract someone to one of my RIM offers and was able to sell my first RIM package from finding a new relationship on Facebook. So it's a multiple stage process, but you actually get there from here. So that's helpful. Pausing for questions. Okay, good. So then each of you would want to try to figure out what it is that you want your primary message to be. And I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint again, because my last slide here is about, what do you post? So one of the things that I discovered about my default behaviors on Facebook was that I didn't have a strategy. And so I would show up on Facebook, and, you know, my strategy was basically, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. So if I was feeling bad, or if I was not especially excited about something, I was just absent from Facebook. So you just wouldn't see me there at all, because you don't take your dirty laundry to Facebook. You only take things that are positive, uplifting, and inspiring. But as a result of that, there'd be huge gaps in my Facebook activity. And when there are these algorithms that are going on in the background that help you to become more visible and show up in people's feeds, if you're having huge gaps in your activity in Facebook, that's not helping you to promote your following, because your personal posts don't necessarily get shared into people's feeds as actively as if you're out there engaging all the time and you know, constantly adding value and constantly bringing things in for people to consider. So again, this is Nathan's formula, and I found it to be really effective. So you're going out and you're posting in other people's groups, and you're bringing them into your group, and then in your Facebook page, which, you know, again, I'm using my personal page. If you want to use a business page for that and keep your personal stuff separate, you can do that. Just know that that's a trade-off, because people are gonna, if they search for Marilyn Montgomery, they're probably gonna find your personal page before they find your business page. And so there's another step they would have to take to get to that information that you're wanting them to share, or you're wanting them to see on a strategic level. So this formula for posting I'm going to share to you, I try to use every day on my Facebook page, and then frequently another post about another topic, but using a similar kind of format on my Facebook group. because you can invite people, and many of you are already members of my Facebook group because you're my friends. So you don't necessarily, you didn't follow me because of something that I posted and you wanted to know more about it. You just know me, like me, and trust me. And so you're willing, because I asked you to go join that group. But for those people that are new and I'm wanting to draw to me and draw to the kind of work that I'm doing, it's really important that when they do see me post, they're not seeing every post be what I had for dinner yesterday, right? Or not every post is about, you know, the antics of my latest grandchild. Those kinds of things are fine periodically, but you know, we need to be pretty strategic if we're going to use this tool to build our following in Facebook or any other social media activity. They want to know your people, you know, they want to know you're human. So that kind of stuff is important to bring in who you really are, but be really sensitive about the kinds of things that you post, because you don't want to be alienating people. Like, I probably wouldn't go on there and have any messaging about Trump or any messaging about, you know, anything that's politically sensitive or religiously sensitive. It's just not, that's all basics, right? You all know that you're not going to have those discussions when you're trying to attract people of all kinds, shapes, and colors to you. So the post formula is basically to talk about what is a pain or problem that you are experiencing or that people in your audience experience. The second part of the post is, you know, what limiting belief or disempowering thought that might show up with, and so what that might really be about. And then lastly, the more positive or empowering belief, or the turnaround. And I've been reading a lot lately about how to use stories in selling. And the next session that I do is about how to use stories and how to master influence in the sales process. And I'll talk more about stories there. But you can see that there's some similarities in these three components for how to tell a story, because you're going to have, in any story, you're going to create the setting, or, you know, set up the situation so that your reader or listener understands where you're coming from. And then you're going to have some kind of a problem or conflict that has shown up that you're going to talk about. And then you're going to have the turnaround. And that's the basic elements of a good story. So if you keep that in mind, you can use that. It can be no more than a couple of paragraphs, but you can still get those things done. So if we go look at my Facebook page again, and I'll just go to my home page, and let's see, I'll go to my group because I don't have to search for it as hard there. Here's an example of a post I did just recently where it talks, sorry, that's where I want to, I talk a little bit about, you know, sort of what's happening, what the setup has been, whatever. And I didn't spend so much time here talking about what the limiting belief is, other than just to describe sort of what the problem is. And the problem in this post has been my attitude, my mood, my, you know, and people who are dealing with, you know, overcoming burnout or preventing burnout are definitely interested in how to control your mood and your attitude, because that's what it's all about, and how to be your best self. So in this particular post, I talked a little bit about me and how I was feeling, and then, you know, something important that I learned, and then something to add value. And I think that's the real key to getting people to trust you and follow you. Is it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's actually good to be vulnerable so that they know that you can relate to their problems. But you have to be adding value. So if you're just there to say how bad you feel, that's not going to help anybody. And so you need to be able to provide something that will allow them to use that information and grow. Here's one that I posted a few days before that, where my coach had given me something. So my inspiration will come from all kinds of places. It'll come from my coach, it'll come from what I'm reading, it'll come from an epiphany I have while I'm meditating because I'm thinking about a particular problem and then it just occurs to me. So one of the first difficulties that I had when I started trying to do daily posts on anything was, oh my God, I just don't have enough to write about. Well, now it's just a question of focus, right? Because we have all of these manuals all over the place of all these lessons that we've taken and all these trainings that we've been taking and all of our years of experience. So it's really not that any of us don't have anything to say. It's really about just figuring out what it is your audience is struggling with or could be struggling with. And if they're your audience, they're your people, you understand where they come from, you know, you don't have to guess. Now, it might not be exactly where they are at any particular point in time because they'll come in and out of seasons just like you do. But it can be extremely beneficial to just always stay connected with who it is you're trying to attract and then speak to that and always be adding value. So I'm going to stop now and just ask, for your thoughts, for your reaction. Is this helpful? I know I talked really fast. I'll stop sharing.
Cindy, did you see Sherry's question about word counts?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not.
Yeah, she put something in the chat.
Okay, and she said she had to sign off early, so she may be leaving. Oh, she's still there. Hi, Sherry. I have not had I'm sure there is a limit on word count. There certainly is in Instagram, but I don't know what the limit is in Facebook. So that's a good question. Does anyone else know?
I just know that visuals and videos are kind of the preferred approach. So
Right.
the fewer words and the more visual you can make it, the more likely someone will look at that post.
Yeah, what I've been told, while I agree with that, and certainly just a text on its own is probably not going to get anyone's attention, especially if it's very, very much. But there's kind of a sweet spot between a post that is a picture with one line, and those are okay sometimes, but they're probably not going to, convince your audience that you're credible in a particular topic. So there's another woman I've been watching talks about 3 sizes of posts, and I don't remember what she called them, but it was basically if you think about Starbucks, it's the tall, the grande, and the venti. The grande is sort of the sweet spot. So a small post that says, way to go, or, go Tigers, or whatever, something really brief. It's fine to do that. There's nothing wrong with it, with a great a great picture maybe, but it probably isn't going to grow your credibility. Whereas to Stuart's points, a really long post that like makes you tired just to look at it can be problematic because people are going to read the whole thing. And so the sweet spot is sort of somewhere in the middle. And it's hard to say exactly what that is in terms of word count, but 2 to 3 paragraphs is getting on the long side, especially if they're long sentences. So keep them pretty brief. And Nathan provided me some feedback in one of my first sessions with him, which was, do you have, and that was to spread out your posts into white spaces, right? So you'd have maybe a line or two, maybe a sentence or two, and then have some white space before you go on to the next one. So it keeps your reader going and they don't look at this block of text and, have eyes roll back in their head. And Marilyn asks if there is a good free source for really cute photos. I have been using Pexels.com, Pexels.com. And it allows you to download their photos for free, and it's very much like clip arts or whatever, where you can just put in a search term for what it is you want to display and it'll give you back some options. And then you can donate, you can to the artist. You can, if you find that you're liking a particular artist's style, you can follow them. And so it begins to be its own little channel for those artists, but they are free to use. And I have found that I can just download them. So they're in my download files and I can just upload them directly to Facebook. If I'm using them in something else, like a landing page, I will probably take them to a canva.com so that I can manipulate it or add text on top of it. And we have in the chat, if everyone can see it, Stuart has shared an example, and Grace has offered multiple examples there. So yay, thank you for that, both of you. And Paula uses Pixels and Unsplash. I've never heard of that one before, Unsplash. So that's awesome. I'm going to do a quick screen grab of that so that I can get them. Great. Perfect. I think you're talking, Stuart, but you're muted.
Okay, yeah, I was muted twice. So if you, those that are online, if they wanted to save the chat, if there's any references that others put in here, it's easy to do. In the lower right-hand corner, there's 3 dots. You can just click on that and you can save chat. That will save it to your own PC. And that way, rather than let that go or take copious notes, we can just quickly grab a saved chat.
Where does it save it to, Stuart?
Your Zoom folder, which is under Documents.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Generally, I think that's where it's saved.
Excellent. All right. Welcome, Felissa. All right. What other questions or comments do you have?
What have you discovered, Cynthia, is the difference between using your personal profile or a page or a group in terms of soliciting business? I've learned, or I've been told, that if you start using your personal profile for business, Facebook doesn't like that, and you can be booted, or there might be an issue and it might be taken down. So I'm kind of challenged in that area. And then on my page, I don't find that there's much interactivity because it's different than a group. So still confused in that whole world.
Yeah, and that's been my experience as well, Stuart. And I think that while I do not feel like I'm an expert in knowing Facebook's rules, I think if you aren't posting something for sale every day and, really frequently, that it's, inviting people to take a look at something periodically, you're probably going to be safe. But I haven't been kicked off Facebook since, oh, I know what I did. I was doing, you guys, some of you may be familiar with Synduit. And when I first started using Synduit, there were a couple of photos that they used in Synduit that caught Facebook police's attention. And so you have to be a little careful about what's in your photos. And I have no idea what it was about that particular picture that caused an infraction, but they pulled me off Facebook. And I challenged it and was put back in, within a couple of days. But it can be disruptive as you're trying to build an audience. My reaction to the page issue is exactly what you said, Stuart, is that I have found that at least at this level of my business building or my Facebook building, I'm just not getting the same level of traction over on my page. And maybe that's because I'm not spending as much time there putting posts. So it might be a good experiment for me to go and spend as much time putting posts on my business page as I put on my group page. But that's just another place I have to post, right? So I've been just using my personal page, and I haven't had any issues with that. And then if you think about it from the user's perspective, if I have to go to a page to do something, then, that's an intentional next step. Well, if you look at that Dr. Brody I pulled up in the beginning, when I looked at Dr. Brody, again, when I looked for her by her name, I found her personal profile, and that's the natural thing that's going to happen. But there's just not much going on her personal profile. So if I hadn't been looking closely and saw in that upper left hand that it says find me here, then I clicked on that and found her page, and that's where she does all of her posting and her interaction. So it may work just fine as long as people know that that's where they can find you.
Okay, so here is a couple idea I've been using.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this year I slowly started to focus on Facebook because my audience changed to, little older age audience. Usually that's a Facebook ad. Instagram is usually average about 35 years old. So it's a different age of audience. Anyway, my personal account often max out. So I have to delete people. I've been deleting many times, delete all the mail first. And then now I've been deleting people not speaking English. And now I've been deleting all the people who are coaches. They won't get me as their client. So just keep cleaning up the account. So how do we focus? What I did right now is I use my business page as main focus. I have a full post on that. Right now I changed the schedule. I post on Thursday, Friday, Saturday because it's better engagement there. And other days I use the time I use my assistant. She will use the time to engage with the potential clients in different, right now I'm doing grief healing. That's my online course. So I go to different grief support group to, just like you said, we go there as regular people, offer help. If they like me, they follow me back. Of course, they follow me back to my personal account. Then what do I do with my personal account? I have a short caption about what I post in my business page and tell them, see more, click, go to my business page. So sort of force them to go to my business page. And that has been about 3 months so far I've been doing that. At the beginning, same thing too. My business page, not much activity going on. But right now, what I see about my daily post is on my business page, I have a lot more shares and comments than my personal account. So I think the point I try to make is just give a little time, probably 3 months. If you just keep doing it, because years ago when I coach people to do social media, I said, you are going to train your followers. So find your way to train them. Whatever your schedule, whatever the thing you do, they like you and they figure out how to do it. They're going to follow you to your Facebook page. So that's my suggestion.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Grace. And you said a couple of things I'd like to comment on, just again for sharing. And one is there is a limit. You can only have 5,000 friends in Facebook. And so it's not a problem for me yet, but I will eventually reach a point where I do have to be more selective about who my friends are. And I mean that in the most Facebook way. I don't have to be selective about my friends in life. But having said that, one of the things that has been happening to me is people will ask me to be a friend, and then they will be at their limit. So I have to contact them and say, I'd be happy to accept your friend, but you're over your limit. So they have to go clean up. So to your point, it is good to clean up some things that, people who are not your target audience. And so you could, if you do that along the way strategically, you won't hit that point where you're at 5,000 and now you have to go back and figure out who it is you want to deselect. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to share and just see if anyone has any comments and then give a word to the wise for those who haven't experienced it yet is there's something on the internet that I don't know what the right term is, but I'm going to call them trolls. And they're most often men, and they're really looking for a date or a purse. And so they will friend me frequently. And so as I've increased my Facebook followings to 5 to 10 a day, probably one of those every day is going to be someone who falls in that category. And initially I was just accepting them. And then what would happen immediately is they come up on Instagram going, "Hello, beauty, how are you?" And it's like, okay, block. But so now I've started, before I friend them in the first place, I will go look to see, who are they? Do they have more than one Facebook post? Are they posting in Arabic, Pakistani, or English? And while I don't want to be profiling people, I've had to deal with this for a while now, and I think everyone does. It's not just because I'm so special. Any other thoughts on how you protect yourself from that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, I would say when people follow my personal account, I tell my assistant, make sure you go back to check their account. Number one must be women. That's pretty clear. But again, even women, they have lesbians. Okay, they try to do something. And how to make sure somehow we sort of interact with them. We know they're probably our potential client, then we accept. Majority of them each day, majority of those people requested, he will send them a private message, say, hey, this account almost full, please follow me on my business page. So actually that helped me to grow that page as well. And of course, if they're not really serious, they're not going to follow. So basically you just put a filter there, you filter people out. And again, if you see that, you can see Paula said that's true. Majority of those guys are pretending they're like military guys. Yes, I got tons of those type of guys, even on Instagram, a lot too. So you just know those kind of people. Oh, okay, targeting widows, great. So just be careful. So for me, the major rule is when people personal message me, say, hey, hello, and don't have anything else, or where are you from, or beautiful, or whatever, done, totally done, doesn't even have any engagement. So you know they're not real, because really professional person not going to speak like that.
Right.
So that's it.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. What other questions might you have? Marilyn, you're muted.
So, like, what's your daily rhythm for keeping up with this stuff so that you don't get lost in the woods completely with all the other things that you need to do? And it's nourishing and not debilitating.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And it falls under a category I would call time blocking and discipline, because it's really easy and non-threatening to do this Facebook work. And you can suck up a whole day doing nothing more than reading stuff that's really cool and interesting, and maybe stuff that's not all that interesting, but it just, sucks you in. So what I do, and then I would open it to ask other people what their disciplines are, is I try to allow my first hour in the morning. It's after my power hour. So after my meditation and all of the stuff that I do to keep my head on straight. My first hour is for designing a Facebook post for my homepage and for my group. And then the rest of the hour is looking at all of those other groups that I've joined to see where I can add value and where I can participate. And sometimes that's nothing more than a couple of posts, and sometimes it's more involved because there's someone I can actually add value to. So it just depends on the day, but I try to limit myself to an hour. And so it looks like, write a post, post it, find your picture, write a post, post it, find another picture, write your post and post it, then go engage in all of those things, and then do a little maintenance on your Facebook page itself. So you're going to probably have requests already sitting there to friend. So you have to go look to see, as Grace was talking about, go look to see if they're real, if they're people that you want to have added, and go ahead and do that. And then Facebook will give you people that you might know because it's friends of friends that you're already connected with. So I like to spend a few minutes every day considering adding some of those people. Now, I can't know at this point whether any of those people are going to be targets for my work. And someday I'll probably have to be more strategic about that, perhaps using Grace's strategy of moving them to a business page. But right now I'm not pushing up against that 5,000 limit very seriously. So I don't have to be too selective. Plus, in all honesty, my target market is still shifting just a little bit, you know, so I don't know exactly who it is that I'm going to end up with. So I don't want to take a strong limiting stance right now, where, you know, a year from now, I might be so crystal clear on who my avatar is that I want to eliminate everyone else. Anyone else have any tips? Okay. A little word about LinkedIn. Because this was about Facebook, but some of you are going to be interested in LinkedIn as well. And some of the concepts are the same, but there are some fundamental differences. And one is that in LinkedIn, while some people get a little sloppy about it, in LinkedIn, you really aren't supposed to be using that forum to do your personal musings, right? So it really does need to be targeted to what you're adding value for in the business world. And in LinkedIn, you can do posts like you do in Facebook. And I've been watching Samantha on LinkedIn. So she'll do posts pretty regularly. And Sam, if you want to share, it'd be nice to know if you do that yourself or if you have an assistant doing it. I would just be curious. But her posts will go up and they're clearly related to what she's doing, but because of what she's doing, they have a more personable flair to them. My posts are typically very much about, you know, the values assessment kinds of things and how workplace dynamics work and those kinds of things. And I haven't been doing very much there yet in terms of just daily posts because, one, LinkedIn, you tend not to do quite as frequently. People don't check it every day like they do Facebook. And the second reason is because in LinkedIn, I'm using articles. So I'll write an article that is more like 350 to 500 words and use those to build credibility in my LinkedIn profile. And that might work well for you, Marilyn, depending on, you know, what it is you want your audience to be at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been getting, it's slow. It takes a lot of time to make traction like that. But I have gotten one for sure where I posted about the Barrett Values Assessment and talked about, let's see, that one was titled 4 Deadly Signs of Cultural Entropy. And I got an email back from someone who read that, who said, we need that assessment. So now it was someone who I've worked with before, so she was very comfortable reaching out to me, and she's not a decision maker, but she gave me the name and the email for her boss. So, you know, that's how the whole thing works.
Yeah.
Sam was ready to speak. She took herself off mute, but then I apparently spoke over her. So Stuart's, like always, my other side of my brain. Thank you, Stuart. Sam.
I always do it because of my dogs, but I'm glad this has come up because I do have an assistant, but I don't let her post for me. I'm territorial at this point about my voice. And I have separated LinkedIn and Facebook in my brain as thinking of LinkedIn as the more corporate. Yep. Like I'm over there, I'm targeting mental health professionals and employers that are, you know, how can I help your staff? And Facebook is more personal, and it's been working for me, but I don't have a system.
Very cool. And I don't know enough about Instagram yet to be dangerous. And then there's other things like Snapchat, which just makes me crazy. So if you want to know anything about those, we'll have to find another resource. Any other questions? Patty, Ryan, how are you doing? Felissa, you joined us. Amy?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I did want to say it's kind of funny. I actually know Dr. Brody personally.
Do you?
We're
Isn't
here
that
in
funny?
Portland. Yeah, I met her like 5 years ago when I worked here. So I met her because I reached out to all the naturopaths for my meal delivery business because that's what I did. So I thought that was hilarious that you pulled that up. I was like, oh, what are the odds?
Yeah, what are the odds? It's a small world after all. I won't say. All right, excellent. Well, that's all I have to share. And
I just want to say hi.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cindy. I want to, so good to see you. So good to see everybody. I'm just driving, so that's why I'm not on camera. But I just am so happy to hear everybody's voices. And really, Cindy, just maybe I'll give you a call after. Really feel just a lot of joy in watching how you've, taken a lot of risks and put yourself out there, and rock on, girl.
Thank you, Felissa. And if you can't see you live, that is a lovely picture. Second only to seeing
Thank you.
live. Excellent. All right. Anything else? Oh, does anyone have a professional service provider for social media other than Synduit? If you want to say more about that, Stuart, go ahead.
Yeah,
Good question.
I was working or in networking years ago, and there was a professional agency in town that does social media posting. It's more like a virtual assistant, but one of their services filter down to making LinkedIn posts or taking over your account, but it runs like $600 a month. And, there's this balance between how much of it is artificial, how much of it is capturing your real voice, and how much time do you want to devote to growing your following. And right. I was just wondering what other people's experience was with that. I know that it going to social media has not been my go-to resource initially because of just the time sink that it can absorb. And without a strategy, it can be a real challenge. And even with that strategy, it might take time to build a following. I know that others have had more success, but I know that they dedicate a major portion of their day just to maintaining that. So if there's a way to find that balance, I would be happy to find that magic pill.
Yeah, and I would comment that I've been cautioned not to let someone else post, even a virtual assistant. They have to really understand your message. And so that means you got to be really clear on it in order to train them. So that personally, while it sounds wonderful, I don't think that would be an option for me. But what does other people think? Because I don't own the floor here.
I can share some. First, I want to say $600 actually really, really cheap. Right now, you can't even find that price. Normal price range probably a couple $1,000, even more, depend on how in depth, how often, and how big following you want. So there's tons agencies out there. But I would suggest as this point, if your target are something really active online, I would say go for it by yourself, because they basically buy you, not just your product. So it's very important to be you there to share whatever you need to share. And then for time there, I would say start from 1 hour again. But probably you have to think about what is most active your audience time. For example, for Facebook, probably most people would say most active is lunch time, eating lunch on phone, evening, eating dinner, probably 6, 7, whatever their local time, or Saturday morning. So whatever you target yourself a couple times, dedicate 1 hour, post it, stay there, engage. And it's very important if you engage right away, usually you get a lot of comments. And when you get more comments coming in, your posts keep going on top. So timing, it is important so that you can think about. That may save you some effort there. Now, this is not say you can't let anybody do it. My assistant has been working with me, this is for 2.5 years. And finally this year, I allow him to write majority of my posts because I gave him all the training, I gave him all the RAM session, emotion code session, whatever I can give it to him. So he knows me very well, but I'm still keep very close eye on them. it's like any post is kind of like out of line, I would directly tell him that this is not what I stand for, or this is way too much. So it needs a little trimming. Now, it is doable, but just think about the trending times is pretty long, a lot of effort too. So that's my opinion.
Well, and I know that there is a way, and maybe I would have to go play with it because I haven't done it. Because right now I'm doing my posts first thing in the morning because that's just what works for my schedule. But it doesn't accomplish what you just said, Grace. So it's probably a good idea for me to think about when those things go out. And you can post, you can time them, can you not? Can you schedule posts?
Yes, you can. If you use the software, not use Facebook directly.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I'll investigate that a little bit. And if anyone else uses something different, please share. I know I used to have something when I was exploring another venue, but I can't remember what it was called. So I'll research that, because it'd be great if you can spend one day, put all your posts out there, and then just walk away from it, right?
Yeah, that thing is called Hootsuite, whatever. It's I don't think
That's
that's free
That's
version.
what it is. That's correct.
Yeah, so you need to pay, but a worth it. Yes, that's the name. So before, when I run it, I post on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, whatever, all the time. So I use that, just push out in different time there. So okay, you have more things here. So that one you can look into. But again, even learning how to make this work is a lot of work too. Because a lot of times it's supposed to post, but whatever happens, it's not going to post, and you're very frustrated. Especially if you run something for a big post, you're supposed to be out in a certain time, or especially you want to run a Facebook ads. So you have to be really careful with that.
Yeah. And then it needs to be said that then there's the whole Facebook Live thing, right? So I know, Grace, you've been doing some Facebook Lives. I think, Sam, you have. I don't know if I've seen any of the other folks that are on the team doing Facebook Lives. I do not feel like I am to a point of competency where I can tell you that is absolutely necessary, but it's what everybody tells me. And it's certainly my coach, Nathan, who I learned much of this from. He does a Facebook Live every couple of days, and it seems to be helpful. So coming to a theater near you or a Facebook near you, because I haven't been doing it. I've done a few as a part of a challenge with the Synduit, and it was so painful. I hated it so much.
Mm-hmm.
But the trick, I think, is I discounted Facebook Live by not planning it carefully. So I plan what I write carefully, right? So what makes me think I would just get on Facebook and do it spontaneously without planning it? So I think that's the key, is plan it out just like you're going to write it, except then do it live. How often do you plan to do yours live, Grace?
Oh, so far I would say Paula actually doing a lot of live with me too. So
Good.
Last couple of months we've been doing once a week. Before that I did 2 times a week or 3 times a week. And I used to, when the COVID just started, I really want to help people. So I live every single day to give people different tools. I want to say live, it is helpful, not just people tell you what's the reason, couple reasons. Number one, Facebook or whatever social media right now in this year, they're focusing on live or video because they want people to be more engaged. So if you have a live, you're going to show little higher on the ranking more than a video or just regular picture post. So Facebook will promote live. Second reason, of course, you want to sell, as I said earlier, if you want to sell our product, we want to sell ourselves first. So people, especially when they do, when we do coaching, people want to know who you are first. So it's very important. They want to check out how you talk, how you speak. The voice sounds good. This person look nice to me. It's what stand for. I really agree for. So it's a lot of unspoken part of thing in that live, and they can get the idea if they want to sign up with you.
Perfect. You didn't know you were going to be my co-host for this webinar, did you?
No.
Great. Thank you very
Cindy,
much.
could you say a word or two about conversion? Because you talked about, the ultimate goal, of course, is to engage and sign up clients. But there wasn't much that you shared other than this is kind of your strategy. What is your strategy for moving people from a Facebook group or from another group into your group and then ultimately engaging them as a client? What have you put together for that?
Well, it is just that. And I don't know that I would be considered an expert in terms of conversion at this point. I shared with you my most recent win, which was selling a package of RIM services, which I was very, very excited about. But remember, I've only been doing this for a couple of months now. I think as we looked at that Facebook group, it was started in May. So it's pretty new, and it takes at least 3 months to really start seeing some traction. But in terms of conversion, what I would call conversion is, in this framework, is not how many people click on your link to buy something, because there's nothing there to buy, right? I'm not selling anything on Facebook. What I'm selling is my credibility. And so I would call conversion following me to a Facebook group, or I would call conversion being willing to take my call when I reach out to them, or being willing to contact me on Messenger. So until I have something that I would sell online, which I can't imagine, that's not the business I'm in, then that's not really a thing for me at this point. It's really just getting them to follow me and begin to associate me with the level of credibility and professionalism that I want to be held in that high regard.
Great, thanks. Maybe Grace, you could comment on your recent course that you've launched and maybe how you've moved people from your massive social media following into that course.
I have to say, so far I don't have a big success to report. I'm still working in process. So yeah, it is based on the marketing general rules. If you have your private Facebook group, which is full of your potential client, you probably should get about 10% converting rate usually. But again, it's all depends how long you build it and if they're 100% your potential client. Because a lot of time at the beginning, we may let a lot of people in, those people not serious about what you teach. So it depends. Now, I don't have any big good example to show you yet. I'm still working on it.
Good luck with that. I'll be watching you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Samantha posted that patience is huge. This is a long game. This is marathon work. This isn't a sprint. And being able to build your credibility is a little like warming the ocean, because there's just, billions of people out there. And it's going to take time for you to find the ones that are going to be drawn to the work that you want to offer. And we are at 6:09 my time. Thank you very much. I hope that you'll all start thinking about how you can grow your following so that in October, actually probably closer to early September, we'll begin marketing our Life Lessons in Success finished book and be ready to start getting people to pre-order and start that work. And Gwen and I will be meeting shortly to talk about how to launch or relaunch our planning for the marketing and social media parts of that team. So more coming to a theater near you. And thank you all for your time tonight. This has been awesome, and I've been glad to be able to share the little bit that I know, and a special thanks to Grace for being my unofficial co-host, and Stuart for awesome questions, and thank you to everyone else.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Cindy.
Great to see everybody. Loved it.
Ciao.
I'm saying hi. Hi, everybody.
Stay safe.
Bye, Melissa.
Right. Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.